आज तुंदा मता मता स्वागत है इन इंटरनेशनल डोगरा सोसाइटीज कनेक्टिंग टू द रूट्स मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री ऑफ जम्मू एंड कश्मीर दे पार्ट 3 ते अगले भाग च जो असें पिछले वीक जिधर छड़िया हा तो आज साढ़े कन्नै जुड़े दे हैं प्रोफेसर हरबल सिंह संबियाल जी जो अपनी बात की आगे लेके चलेंगे सर वेलकम बैक थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर गिविंग अस दिस important piece of history and educating us on where we are today. So I would again ask you to please continue where we left last week, especially with the question which was given by Captain Murthy. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Vikrant. Good evening, everyone. Good morning to all of you who are in Europe, USA. I don't see Captain there. I'll continue with his question.
Ji,
so
sure.
We don't waste time, and before we approach our topic, let us be done with it. He asked me if I thought that there was an intelligence failure regarding 1990. Such a large scale events took place in the whole of the valley that in a concerted manner, all the mosques, they had only one thing going, certain kind of slogans, certain kind of lectures, stories narrating the bravery and the sacrifices of the jihadists of the medieval period, and then again sloganeering regarding the desire for freedom from India. So how come that the government did not come to know? I have thought about it a lot, and I have seen most of the incidents, and I'm sorry to say that I do not find a single incident where an inquiry has been conducted regarding the failure of intelligence. Either there is no intelligence failure, everything is allowed to drift deliberately, but to what end, I cannot answer that, but it's very sinister. In 1990, no inquiry was made that if at such a large scale, the plan was afoot to terrorize the Pandits in the whole of the valley, then what were the intelligence doing? So what was their input, and what decision did the government take on the basis of that input? We have a history. We have a history of failure as far as intelligence is concerned. Till recent event, when the Pulwama attack came, we have not conducted an inquiry that how such a big attack could take place. You will recall that soon after that, when the Balakot surgical strike took place, there was a friendly fire in which a helicopter was shot down and all the occupants of defense forces, they were killed.
Yes.
The Air Force was very quick in conducting an inquiry. Not only just conducting an inquiry and then putting that, they also took appropriate action against those who were responsible for that mistake. Which means that there is a practice in our country, maybe it is only in the defense forces, but there is a practice of conducting an inquiry if a failure has taken place, then pinning the blame on the people who are responsible for that and giving out appropriate punishment. So 1990 is a failure, and 1990 no action was taken that is known to us. So the obvious conclusion is that the administration of that time was complicit with the events, that they allowed it to drift. But to what end? Who is going to benefit from that? That is beyond my comprehension, and I won't be able to answer that. I'll be making conjectures that this might be there, but I'm narrating the facts. The facts are that no inquiry is ever conducted in any failure, whether that attack is on Pulwama or Red Fort or Dinanagar police station or anywhere else. Even the Mumbai attack of 2008, no inquiry was made. At least we do not know if anything happened after that. So that is the truth. And with that, I leave it for your respective judgments. Now I come back to my topic, that how the exodus of Kashmiri Pandits began. How they were terrorized and driven out of the valley. But what pains me to notice is that I have yet to come across a single account of a Kashmiri Muslim that takes responsibility for those actions. It was a collective failure. It was a failure of a society, that a part of you is going away, you are driving out that part, and you have no remorse. That hurts deeply. How can collectively people be so subhuman? But this is what happened. And another thing that emerges is that a new generation has come, a generation that was young in 1990, school going. They have an entirely different kind of approach to the events. Sheikh had begun his campaign in 1975 when he became the chief minister to obliterate, to delegitimize the regime of Bakshi, Ghulam Muhammad Sadiq and Mir Qasim. That is the period of integration when people had begun to accept the symbols of Indian nationalism. That period was deliberately pushed out of the discourse by Sheikh Abdullah. The result was that I quote Basharat Peer, an author and a journalist, who writes about that period. He was a schoolboy in 1989. We can presume he was either in 8th class or in 9th class. And this is my reading after going through his book, that this must be the class he was in. His father, mind you, was a civil servant. His grandfather had been the headmaster of the village school. And they had accepted, his father wanted his son to be educated so as to join the civil services of the country. The highest civil service, obviously that means IAS, IFS or IPS. So that means there was a class which accepted the Indian symbols, Indian nationalism. They wanted to be part of the national mainstream. But Basharat Peer, who because of his young age, immaturity, cannot recognize the changes that have taken place in the state, the Islamic influence, and how the Islamic influence has reshaped the forces that are at work in the state. And therefore, what he writes is, how he remembers is the winter of 1990, recalling the winter of 1990, he writes, 5 of my classmates were not there when the school reopened. Along with killing hundreds of pro-Indian Muslims, ranging from political activists to suspected informers for Indian intelligence, militants killed hundreds of Pandits on similar grounds, all without reason. Now note this phrase, without reason. They killed Kashmiri Pandits without any reason. The deaths had scared Pandits, and thousands, including my class fellows, they and their families left the village by March 1990. They did not leave the village, they left the valley. They moved away from the valley. Now this is the memory of Basharat Peer. Now Basharat Peer, he goes on to say, despite my ignorance about political history of Kashmir, I had a sense of alienation and resentment most Kashmiris felt and had against Indian rule. We did not relate to the symbols of Indian nationalism, the flag, the national anthem, the cricket team. So this is how Basharat Peer remembers. That is the generation which was growing up in the 80s. This is how they remember their relationship with the rest of the country. Now with this fact, now obviously you can imagine that nothing good could have emerged from it. And I suspect what was happening was that the Islamic fundamentalism and Kashmiri sub-nationalism, they had come together, and because of that, this toxic atmosphere had come to stay in the valley. I'll also narrate very briefly what was the song that was sung in 1990. The song was said to be written by the Hurriyat leader Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani. The song goes like this: Khoone Shahida Rang Laya. Khoone Shahida रंग लाया, सुबह का परचम लहराया, और जागो जागो सुबह हुई, बदलो जम्मू की तकदीर, हाथों में लेकर शमशीर, बदलो जम्मू की तकदीर. Now a Kashmiri village boy, if he is singing this song, that फतेह का परचम जो है वो लहरा उठा है, and take up the sword and change the destiny of Jammu. Obviously, the design is sensitive. The design is not of Kashmiri. The design is made in Pakistan. With this kind of attitude, obviously, the forces, both the forces, the nationalists and the Kashmiris, they were face to face. The result was that there is a phase of violence that began after that. One phase began with 1990. In fact, it started in 1988 and gradually started building up. In 1990, the gloves were off and everything was out there in the open. But the worst phase began from 1990 and lasted till 1995. During this phase, it was dominated by Jammu and Kashmir Liberation Front of Yasin Malik. Yasin Malik had gone to Pakistan. Yasin Malik had masterminded the abduction of Dr. Rubaiyat Saeed. And most of the blasts and explosions that were taking place in the valley, they were the doing of JKLF At least they were taking the responsibility for all the blasts, all the explosions. But soon, Yasin Malik realized that JKLF was being used by Pakistani handlers. That Pakistan wanted JKLF to deliver Kashmir to Pakistan. Whereas the desire of JKLF and Yasin Malik was to attain independence from India and have their own state. So with this clash coming out in the open, obviously the Pakistani handlers, they pulled back a little and they raised another organization of their own, the Hizbul Mujahideen. Later on, the Hizbul Mujahideen also splintered and a number of smaller terrorist organizations, they sprung up. But all of them were handled by Pakistan. The ISI of Pakistan controlled it in such a manner that no action could be taken in Kashmir without the approval of Pakistani ISI. They gave the targets, they gave the finances, and they screened the people who were to go there. This book about ISI has been written by a German scholar, and he has given in detail how close contact they had with these terrorists and how they controlled the finances and how they made the distinction between foreign terrorists who were working on behalf of ISI in Jammu and Kashmir and the local terrorists who were not paid. They were only provided with the arms and ammunition. While not on a mission, they were to take care of themselves. There was no salary for them. But for the foreigners, there was monthly payment. So 1990 to 95, one phase of terrorism was there in which JKLF was the lead part, but very soon by 1993, 92 in fact, it was being replaced by Hizbul Mujahideen. During this period, number of deaths took place. On 6th January 1993, at Sopore, the terrorists fired on a BSF bus. And the BSF, they retaliated, killing 55 people. It's not known who were there. It is presumed they were civilians. And a few among them might be terrorists, or it is also possible that the terrorists might have escaped and only the civilians got caught. The purpose was obvious. If the armed forces retaliate, the casualties will be civilian, and those civilian casualties would further alienate the valley from India. In 1993, again, at Beej Behera, BSF killed 51 civilians, and a long agitation that took place. I have given a very detailed account of all these incidents in my book, and since here it won't be possible to each and every one in detail and what was behind it, I will just be casually mentioning a few and then trying to understand the impact of all these. And then began a phase in the 90s when terrorists made abduction of foreigners a tool of not only terrorizing and troubling the country, but also gaining the freedom of their fellow terrorists. The first such abduction took place just a minute, I'll let you know. It was at the army people would remember better. It was at Pahalgam. The Al Farhan abducted 6 foreigners, and they remained abducted for a long time. And I think after about 5 or 6 months, it was told that none of them escaped. So this began with in 1995. In 1995, the worst incident that could have taken place in Kashmir happened in Charare-Sharif. Now, Charare-Sharif is a place, it is strategically located, and we were later on told that it was the place where the terrorists used for their winter stay. In winter, they'll cross over, they'll stay in Charare-Sharif, and as the snow melted, after that, they moved to the rest of the valley. The army had come to know. Now, this is again a very surprising act, and a question again raised about the intelligence, that if the intelligence knew this was happening, what did they do? About 75 militants in 1995, they had gathered there. It was known. And then it was decided to act. Perhaps the forces were waiting that let all of them be here together and then we'll act. But the question should be that of all the places, would the forces act at Charare-Sharif? And look at the consequences. But this did happen. The forces waited, and finally when they started action, the result was that after a long standoff between the two, in which these terrorists were even given the offer of escape route, that they'll be escorted to Suchetgarh border, and from that border they can cross over to Pakistan. One of the factions was prepared to take that offer, but the other faction led by Mastgul, again of Hizbul Mujahideen, who was in constant touch with his Pakistani handlers, and what he called the Markaz, कि Markaz जो कहेगी वो करेंगे हम. So Markaz commanded him that stay put. He stayed put along with them, and finally when the confrontation did take place, they decided, this is the official version, that they put the houses on fire. 200 houses were burnt. And when the firing took place, 20 citizens were killed. But to the eternal shame of the army, Mastgul escaped from that place. Mastgul and the hardcore terrorists of his, they escaped. As the news reached, people started walking towards Charare-Sharif. It was with great difficulty that situation was controlled in Anantnag and Srinagar. The administration also decided not to allow the media to come. The result was that media started making its own conjectures of what had happened. So all kind of rumor was going on. So at this point in time, it appeared that Narasimha Rao has finally lost the battle and there was no hope for peace in Kashmir. But things did change, and they changed for the better, so much so that in 1996, the administration was able to conduct the elections. Now, it is said, if we read the book of A.S. Dulat, his Kashmir Days, if we read that, we come to know that at that point in time, another leader, Kashmiri leader, he was being groomed to take over the leadership of Kashmiris. Shabir Shah. Shabir Shah was being groomed for leadership. Farooq Abdullah was in England. And when he came to know about this development, he rushed back to the valley and reorganized his party. And they were ready for the elections in 1996. Farooq Abdullah in 1996 was back in power. But this period was marred by terrorist activities. One of the worst killings of Kashmiri Pandits, they happened during this period, probably to, Farooq Abdullah would say that to derail his administration. But whatever may be the reason, the fact is that these incidents took place. Now, what should be expected of a chief minister in these circumstances? A good administration, a sound administration. One of the first things which he had promised was that there would be regional autonomy, that a commission would be set up for regional autonomy. And the commission was set up. And Dr. Karan Singh was made the chairman of that autonomy committee. But soon thereafter, it was realized that the government was not serious. So Dr. Karan Singh disassociated himself from that committee. And one step which could have helped in normalizing the state was lost. Because, as I have repeatedly said, the basic problem of Jammu and Kashmir has been that there is a fault line between the three regions. There is a deep fault line between Kashmir and Jammu and between Kashmir and Ladakh. And only a wise leadership can guide the ship of the state through those periods. But instead of going through with the exercise of the autonomy, giving regional autonomy and thereby avoiding any regional clash, Farooq Abdullah went on with the same old style of Kashmiri domination of the whole of the state. So obviously the consequence is that the fundamentalism also enters into the discourse, and the consequences are there to see. This is 1996. The next election is due 6 years after that. 2002. In between, the BJP government that comes to power in the center, Atal Bihari Vajpayee becomes the prime minister. So he had a different kind of approach to the whole problem, a conciliatory approach with a touch of Nehruvian liberalism and politics, the consequence was that Mr. Vajpayee prevailed upon Farooq Abdullah that let Umar Abdullah be part of the NDA of that time. And he was made a state minister for foreign affairs. And to be very honest, by all accounts, he was said to be a good, successful state minister for foreign affairs. However, the consequences were bad for the National Conference. Number one, there is historical animosity between BJP and National Conference. And Farooq Abdullah had tried to ignore that. He had tried the same thing which he had done in connivance with Rajiv Gandhi in the 1987 elections of eliminating other people from the field. In the state he is ruling and his son is there in the government of India. Or you can say that he realized that no regional power can work comfortably without being on the right side of the government of India. And therefore, some kind of patch-up had to be made with BJP also. But unfortunately for his politics, the Godhra Kand happened. With Godhra, the Gujarat riots began and 2,000 Muslims in Gujarat were slaughtered. Umar Abdullah was part of the NDA, part of the government headed by BJP. And obviously, some of the blame came on National Conference also. The PDP took full advantage, and in the elections of 2002, National Conference was ousted. But one good thing one must notice that happened was that for the first time, Conference had been defeated democratically. It had not been removed. It had been removed by the people. The people had voted Farooq Abdullah out, and they gave a chance to another political party. Mufti Muhammad Saeed did not have the numbers. And therefore, Congress aligned with Mufti and a coalition government was made on the condition that half of the tenure, 3 years, will be Mufti Muhammad Saeed's, and after 3 years, Congress will have its chief minister. Now, this is a solution which Karan Singh had offered in 1975. He had told Indira Gandhi that bring in Sheikh Abdullah, but ensure that there is a Congress deputy chief minister in the state and reasonable representation for Jammu in the cabinet. So on paper, this arrangement that 3 years of Congress and three years of PDP and 3 years of Congress appeared very reasonable. But this period is marred by certain things. A few of the massacres that took place, Chitti Singhpura, Vandhama, all these massacres which gave a bad name to the country. It is said that the Chitti Singhpura massacre occurred because Bill Clinton was here in the country, and therefore either the Pakistanis did it in a kind of a challenge to the USA, or it was also suggested, of course, by the Pakistani sources that this was the doing of the Indian forces so as to win the sympathy of USA. But the fact is that our people got killed during that period. Another question mark on that period is that during the earlier period, another force had been raised by the Indian intelligence, Indian army. That was the Ikhwanis. Ikhwanis were those Kashmiri militants who had returned from Pakistan and then given up arms and had started working in collaboration with the Indian army, and they had helped in eliminating a number of terrorists. During the period of Mufti Muhammad Sayyid, most of the Akhwani leaders, they were eliminated, including Kuka Pare, who had also won an election, who was an MLA. He too was eliminated. So this always has put a question mark on who did it. And the needle of suspicion always points towards Mufti Muhammad Sayyid, that he masterminded the elimination of all these Ikhwanis, including Kuka Pare. But the fact remains that this was a period when Mufti Muhammad Sayyid became the chief minister, when there was some kind of semblance of peace in the valley. Every day, terrorists were being eliminated. Life was returning to normalcy. I have myself been to the valley during that period thrice during the year 2003. And I know that I traveled almost the whole of the valley in batches, of course, 3 separate trips. According to the understanding, after the period of 3 years, Congress had a chance to have its chief minister, and Ghulam Nabi Azad was made the chief minister. By all accounts, he was said to be a good chief minister. Not a Kashmiri, a Muslim from Jammu, but nevertheless acceptable to the Kashmiris also. And by and large, he was fair to both Jammu and Kashmir. And what I remember most is that people from my place, Samba, they were very happy because it was during his period that Samba not only became a district, but it also got a government college. And we had been cribbing for a long, long time that we had a high school and a hostel in 1905, and yet this school was never upgraded. So this was the contribution of Ghulam Nabi Azad. Governor at that time was Lieutenant General Sinha from the Gorkhas. He had introduced a new practice which, to the best of my knowledge, was never part of Jammu and Kashmir. And that practice was that he used to perform the Pratham Puja at Amarnath. Now, I don't think we have, and I may be corrected by General Govardhan Singh if I'm wrong, but we never had this tradition. The ruler, the king, never went for the first puja when the Amarnath Yatra began. And I doubt if Maharaja Hari Singh ever visited. Maharaja Pratap Singh did visit. There is a photograph of that. But Lieutenant General Sinha, he introduced this practice because, being from the Gorkhas, he knew that during the Dashera, the Durga Puja, the first day of the Navratra, the puja was performed at Pashupatinath Mandir in Kathmandu by the king of Nepal. So that practice, he became the king of Kashmir and he performed the puja. So I am narrating this just to give you the mindset of the person. Just when his tenure was to end, what he did was, for many, many months, a file was pending with him, a file regarding the allotment of land to Shri Amarnath Shrine Board on the Baltal Holy Shrine route. One of his last acts as governor was that he gave permission. He allotted 99 acres of land. Now this he did at a time when the Amarnath Yatra had already begun. The result was that Kashmir, the trouble began with Ganderbal, and protests erupted all over the valley. And soon the government had to take a decision. And finally, when new governor N.N. Vora came, the first thing he did was he cancelled the allotment. With the cancellation of the allotment, the protests in the valley, they came to an end. But counter protests had already begun in Jammu. And now Jammu wanted the land to be restored. It was a long drawn struggle. And many people, I would say that the politics of the times, they changed. They changed forever during the Amarnath agitation. The government, for the first time, they used the tactic of depriving the people of communication. The SMS services were terminated. They were stopped. But the protests did not stop. They continued. And I'll read out, it's a report from Economic Times. After Arun Jaitley's visit to Jammu, the report was, referring to the upsurge among the people, the BJP leader said that despite blocking off all SMS services, people have come out to protest. He also spoke about the continued atrocities on the media. The party has also condemned the restrictions on media persons, arguing that it was against healthy democracy. The BJP has also suggested that a team of National Human Rights Commission visit Jammu and investigate human rights violation by the security forces against the Jammu people. Now, you can see, I hope you can see the irony of the statement then and compare it with what happened and what has already happened and is happening every day in Kashmir even today. What kind of healthy democracy we have practiced now is there for you to see in the light of this statement. The result was that PDP, they withdrew their support and the government had to fall, it fell. And the state was back under the governor's rule. Soon thereafter, the elections were to take place. And National Conference once again won the elections, came back, Farooq Abdullah was back in saddle. But this time, it was not Farooq Abdullah who was back in saddle. It was his son who became the chief minister. Umar Abdullah, not very experienced, he became the chief minister. From 2008 to 10, things just drifted. The election manifesto of National Conference had promised two things: the withdrawal of Armed Forces Special Powers Act and the pre-53 position of the state vis-a-vis the country, the Constitution of India. So what impacted after that, how these things changed, how they destroyed the chief ministership of Umar Abdullah, his own inexperience, his penchant for mobile phone, governing the state via Twitter, social media. That we'll see the next time. I'll be happy to take certain questions. It has been a sketchy affair, but the fact is that one cannot go in each and every killing. Then we'll be dealing only with the massacres, and the larger picture of what were the forces that were at work, that would be lost. For that, soon I think whenever my book comes in detail, I have dealt with each and every incident separately. Thank you very much. Over to Vikram.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing this in-depth historical knowledge. Though I'm sure many of our viewers and listeners will be able to connect with it because we all come from that time and era. But it's just that we have never, perhaps I was thinking while listening to you that I've never thought or put it in that perspective. So thank you very much for giving us that knowledge. Now I'll ask if there's anybody who has a question to put towards Harbans, sir.
Could I?
Oh, yes, sir. Indeed.
Thank you very much.
Welcome back. Good evening. Good afternoon, actually.
Thank you very much. And once again, as you, am I clear?
Yes, sir. You are indeed.
Yeah. Very informative with the factual, historical facts, bringing to our knowledge, and certainly more useful to the young people like yourself in the future, because it's very important. As the history or any other debates, as we all say, all the coins have the two sides, not one side. So as I will believe every single word Mr. Harbans Singh ji has said, as an Indian and have more emotional attachment with India, particularly have as a united India. There are the facts, Mr. Harbans Singh ji, you have mentioned many times in the past as well, and today again, that there's a very strong element who is provocating totally differently the way the history you put it. And we have faced and suffered ourselves. I'm living in Britain. I have seen the debates in the parliament and who are leading those campaigns, what are their motives. I can see it. And they also have very planned program to dismantle India or discredit India, whatever that phrase suits individuals. They have very planned agenda for India. How best we can raise the awareness amongst the young people who are the future of our society, how we can make them more confident that they can not confront it physically, but educationally, as well as with the facts, to put the history right. I would like to see academic approach, Mr. Harban Singh ji, if you give some idea what need to be done to bring the facts to the people so we can have the true and more democratic and equal society, which at present we don't see it. That's my
Thank you very much,
general
Sharma ji.
overall observation, come a question direct on this, how best we can do that.
Thank you very much. I'm seeing you after a long time. I've missed you, in fact. As you said, that there are two sides of a coin. And history too has the two sides. For the young people, we need to educate them about both the sides. And once we have taught them to critically think, to critically examine, I think then they are in a position to make an informed opinion about the subject. What usually happens is that we begin with a mission that this is what we want to make our children out. This is what we want to teach them. And then we ignore the other side. I haven't seen how the partition took place. I was born in 1947. I read a lot, and I have been deeply impressed not only by some of the recent books by Ayesha Jalal and Ishtaq Ahmed's recent book, Jinnah. They are impressive work. They give a different perspective and helps us to frame the question in a larger perspective. And we can be accommodative. But I have witnessed the terrorism that began in Punjab. Right from the beginning, I have seen that. Right from the beginning, I have noticed how the Jalandhar press worked at that time. And I know it very well how even people in power, they try to encash that hatred. They stoke the fire and then they try to encash the hatred. But then I also see one thing, that there came a time when the BJP and the Akali Dal, two opposing sides, they came on the same platform, so as to keep Congress out, because Congress was responsible for a number of ailments in Punjab. They succeeded in doing that, and consequently, the animosity between the Hindus and the Akalis, that lessened. So one lesson that we can draw is that when we decide to have common goals, then we can rid ourselves of the hatred, of the dislike of each other. Now, I wanted to answer this question at the end of all my lectures. And since General Govardhan Singh is also here, I would in fact ask him to take a lead in that. Then what we need to do in Kashmir, in Jammu and Kashmir, is, even now, though it's very, very late, is that let us have a heart-to-heart dialogue with Kashmir, with Kashmiri leaders. Let us tell them where they have hurt us most, how they have hurt us most, and how that hurt has rebounded on them. And then a chain reaction has gone on for Pakistan to exploit it. So education is the only way. And since you are in public life, Sharma ji, you know it better that the school curricula, that is very important. What we teach our children, do we just ram through their throats, or do we just give them the ability to think? That's very critical as far as I think. If we give them good education, where no discussion is barred, all the sides can be discussed threadbare, and then an informed opinion be made, then I think that we can be what we like to be, liberal people in approach, the same kind of philosophy which was there in the Vedic period, that accommodate all different thoughts. Let different thoughts, let light come from all the sides. That's the only solution. Maybe it's very idealistic what I'm saying, but I do not know of any other solution. Thank you very much.
May I, Vikrant?
Yes, sir. Please, please.
Firstly, my apologies for not switching on the video because my internet is not stable as of now. Now, whatever question is there, a very vital question has been asked by Mr. Sharma, and I can assure you there could not be a better answer given what Mr. Samyal has said. Absolutely true. There's not an iota of a doubt about anything about that there has to be a common dialogue. But I'll just touch a few of the issues. Maybe if I may have the knowledge and the intellectual capacity to add on to what Mr. Harbans is saying. Like, sir, you said there are two sides of the coin. Sir, unfortunately, as far as J&K is concerned, there are many sides of this coin. There are not two, sir. I don't know what kind of a coin is this, but this has got multifaceted questions. There are Abdullahs, there are Nehrus, there are Jinnahs, there are British, there are Russians, there are Americans, there are Pakistanis, there are Jihadis, there are Hindus, there are Muslims, there are Sikhs. I don't know how many coins and how many sides are there. And as Mr. Samyal has correctly said, he's given you a wonderful example of Punjab insurgency, wherein he used a beautiful word, a very, very appropriate word, and that is Encash. So let me assure you, sir, all these entities in J&K state, related whichever way, are only trying to encash any event that has happened in J&K, and this is everybody doing it, less the natives of J&K state. The poor, hapless people who have been exploited for centuries, for no fault of theirs, with all their strength and inherent, but then they don't have the leadership at all. They never had, sir. Even if Maharaja Hari Singh was somebody very strong person, but he was always, overpowered by the British. He was always overpowered by the leadership from India for whatever reason. So this is the question of encashing to their appointments. Now, the question is, what should we be teaching our children? Sir has very rightly said, teach them everything and let them think on their own and get out of it as to what exactly it means. I'm absolutely with you, sir. We must tell them all views and let them apply their own mind and find out what is the correct one. But only I want to put a caution here, sir. As we said, there are a whole lot of facets of the coin and a whole lot of people are encashing. Unfortunately, what has happened is there are very, very few authors from J&K. There are very few speakers from J&K. Whatever is being spoken about J&K, this Itihas ke panne, whatever we're speaking, this is all either written by British, all written by Pakistanis, all written by outsiders from wherever. And they give you all kinds of versions of theirs, whatever they thought. For example, I think Mr. Samyal has also covered it in one of his lectures, and very rightly so. I don't know why. I mean, I'm not descendant of Maharaja Hari Singh. It is just that Dr. Karan Singh and my father were born on the same day. So that is the kind of a favor I have with Dr. Karan Singh. And that's it. I have failed to understand how Maharaja Hari Singh was a tyrant. How was he an autocratic ruler? Small example. Whole world says so. But who are those whole world? They are British. They are Indians. They are politicians from whichever country. Not the guy at the J&K. If he was a autocratic, tyrannical, there should be people rising from within J&K saying that he was autocratic. Less Sheikh Abdullah or Ghulam Abbas, because they were affected parties. So how good is their opinion? But what you want to know about his governance is, see the work he has done. See the written things which are available on ground, which we see today. What did he do for the society? What did he do for the all the religious groups in the J&K state? So that is how we should find out. Now, yes, he was a ruler. It was some kind of a state of a Maharaja. So were for 565 in the rest of the country. It was not a democracy. So few of the things would be there. So I'm not saying if a foreign author is writing about J&K, he's telling a lie. He would tell the truth. He would pick up an isolated incident, highlight it in a manner with all his scholastic capabilities, his writing skills, and blow it in front of you as though it is a big issue, and you make an opinion on that. So that is how it happens. So we have to tell people, please start listening to the original inhabitants of Jammu. Like I had mentioned earlier also, whenever I go in Jammu, I spend a lot of time with Jan Jawal sir. I spend a lot of time with Mr. Joginder Singh. I spend a lot of time with Brigadier Gansara Singh. I spend a lot of time with so many other, like Major Brahm Singh, with Colonel Bhagwan Singh. The lot of बुजुर्ग जो हमारे बैठे हुए हैं, वो हमें सच बताते हैं क्या हुआ क्या बेटा. So we should give presence to those things. And those of us who have a flair for writing or who have a flair for speaking must come out with this. Rather than, Mr. Harbans Singh Samyal has been working so hard to give you the facts of whatever, of history, whatever hard work he has put in. This should not be wasted. This should be analyzed. And it should not be मंदिर में सत्यनारायण की कथा ये सुन के आ गए once a week और बोला कि हमने कथा सुनी थी. No, please listen to it. Maybe if Harbans Singh sir permits, we should interact with him, ask him questions, and then come to a conclusion. Yes, this is what it is. So that I would say would be the thing for our generation. And sir, as we had a meeting yesterday, so you said people should be, like Mr. Harbans said, people should be brought to a table. Yes, I've started a platform called International Institute of J&K Studies and Analysis for this. We are of the opinion that on this platform we should have people from Jammu, people from Kashmir, and people from Gilgit-Baltistan. And I have people like Dr. Amjad, Mr. Shakur Khan, Barrister Bashani. All these people are already there, and they say the same thing. They say we should come onto a same platform, and whatever oppressive forces who have been sort of putting us down for a long time, let's jointly speak in the joint manner and in the correct manner. Please listen to us. We are the marginalized people. Nobody has ever heard us. And whatever somebody who was an intellectual to speak, he didn't last long. So let it be our rule, our destiny, our demography, our everything. So that is what probably we need to tell the thing. And I'm sure Mr. Sharma has already given me his blessings yesterday. I got your post, sir. I'm working on that. So this is what is my opinion. And I thank Mr. Harbans, who has given such a wonderful and logical answer to your question and dwelled on it, how exactly we should be training our next generation. And my advice to people like Vikrant, it should not be Satyanarayan ki katha Gadadhar ke mandir mein, meri gali ki party mein. It should be a logical, research-oriented, serious. Thank you very much.
Well said, Vijayji. Very impressive, and I'm really sorry I have to leave, Harbans Singh ji, but I will join you next week or whenever the next lesson is. My campaign for many, many years, I think it's over 25 years now in Britain, what the term is given, decolonizing the British history, to taking the Commonwealth history back into the British educational system, so that the future generations in Britain must learn where was the good things happened, if it happened, what is the worst things also happened, like Jallianwala Bagh and many other incidents never taught in the schools in Britain. So that campaign is ongoing. I'm not saying that I have won the campaign, but at least this campaign is debated in the academic field. In all the universities, people do talk about this subject, and they say that Brinda Sharma has initiated and they are joining me, and many MPs are also joining me. But I feel it that that's where it will be, as a British Indian living in Britain and be part of the British system now more than the Indian system. I will be certainly raising those issues, and hopefully one day during my time while I'm on this planet, to see that the books written by Harvansh Singh Ji and other writers are brought into the British curriculum, British education system, so that people can learn about Kashmir as well. That's my wish, and that's where we will be working together. And that's why I have spoken to Vijayji yesterday, and I wanted that partnership created between British politicians, British academics, and the people like yourself in India, particularly in the J&K area. My apologies for today, but I look forward to see all of you whenever the next event is. I do apologize for this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. I think I would like to add in my points. I'm not really experienced or educated as many of you intellectuals are, but I think the major point was, how can we educate our future generation? And this is something which I strongly feel about, because even myself, who's grown up in this 90s era and the 2000s era, I had zero knowledge about our Jammu history or Jammu and Kashmir history. Until I became kind of active in our try to connect it back to my roots. Hence, this connecting to the roots is very important for me. So I think from my perspective, when we were studying in school, I don't think we ever read about Jammu and Kashmir history. All we read more about was from 8th class till 10th was focused on Mughals. Before that, we were quite busy studying African history, but I didn't understand why and why we miss completely about our own people. I don't think many of us even knew Maharaja Hari Singh. The only knowledge I had during my childhood days was from Amar Palace. And I didn't know how it came into existence, who brought it up. And I used to see a few pictures in the palace of kings and Maharanis of that time, but we didn't know much about it. So if we don't start that in India, how can we bring that over here in Britain? That's a big challenge. I think this is what we as a future generation has to think about, how we can bring our local history, which really is important for our own existence, to be back in curriculum so that the others can follow. We have to bring Jammu to read the Jammu history, then you can get India to read Jammu history, and then you can get international countries to read the Indian history. That's how I see it. But
yes,
surely you can add the point.
I can say something on this.
Sure, sir.
Actually, there's a lot to say, but I'm glad Harvansh Singh Ji is giving us so much and so much to think about also. So many ideas were coming in my mind, which would need probably another session sometime. But 2-3 things quickly. One, what he said about the puja. I know you are right. Nobody ever went to the this Gufa and did this, but puja was done only by the staff. I, as the president of Dharma Trust, did it at the Akhada in Srinagar. That's all. But nobody. But I know the Sinha. I was here after my retirement. I was with him. And he took a lot of interest, personal interest also. I don't know, you probably said that he may be personally also involved, being a Gorkha officer also. That may be true, but he did even for Mata Vaishno and all that. He took a lot of interest and went at both the places and all that. But of course, this problem of the land row was a terrible thing to happen, and that was unreasonable on the part of the Kashmir. In fact, that episode has distanced the people of Jammu from Kashmir from that day so much, and that the youth of today saw themselves, and the youth were killed by the police. For what? For asking few canals of land somewhere up in the Himalayas, which probably, if we are not protected, China would have taken away. That was a very wrong step. And in fact, I remember Farooq and even Umar, one said in the parliament, other said in the streets, land over our dead bodies. The same day I resigned from the National Conference. For which 12 years I had been hooked there. So I released myself. I said, this is the party which will never do good to Jammu in any case. From that day, I was convinced. Now, as you say, talking with the Kashmiris, we will have to talk one day because they are part of the country and they are our neighbors. As they say, neighbors can't be changed. That may be one man, what you call ruler or a chief minister, whatever it is. But people to people, we have to live together. Now, that's what is not happening. Because the politicians don't let that happen. The political parties will not let that happen. I mean, now you see what is happening. There is no political things happening now at the highest level. Only the panchayats, and now there's a hell of a fight going on. And for that, they made a what they call collective fighting from some alliance they have made. Jammu has no alliance against Kashmir. But Kashmir has alliance against Jammu and is working beautifully. And Jammu is still distorted as their history is distorted. So now Jammu people, Jammu leadership, we'll have to think. Unfortunately, I hope Jammu people are listening these debates and they're not listening. Our leaders are still not together. First, they must learn how to be together. Only then they'll be able to get their share, whatever they must get, they have not got. 73 years, there have been only discriminations, distortions, as he said rightly, Gupta. That's what my campaign is, to include all these studies in our university. Now 2 years, today almost 1.5 years, we've got a union territory. But so far I have not seen any initiative to include even Dogra history, even small histories of Dogra in the school curriculum. No initiative has been taken so far. And I was working today only with all our colleagues. Let us request the Lieutenant Governor to approach the boss or whatever the organization is, to include these things in the curriculum. Something must start, but so far nothing has happened, and therefore there is a lot to be done, and it is only probably due to these kind of projections. Now we are trying to educate the people. Some message is going, but still I don't think we can tie up with Kashmiris. Jammu will have to become a state. Then we will be able to sitting across the. Otherwise, no talk will take place. And once Jammu state comes into being, I am sure there will be quarrel, fight, but our things will not be taken away by Kashmiris. Presently, we don't get anything. Tourism, we have not developed at all. I can tell you 20 stories and correct facts where total discrimination has taken place against us. We cannot develop. They will not let us develop. They will become, what is this Gupkar? This is jihad.
Yep.
Tomorrow, whatever we'll get, these jihadis will take from us. The only answer now left is that Jammu including all Punch, Kishtwar, we all get together. Let a Muslim of Jammu rule us. We are together, we'll get together. It is only those Kashmiris, they have not let us get together. As Mirza says that they call us they call us Kashmiris. We are not Kashmiris. We are Dogras, he says. He cries, he weeps. You see tears rolling. So it's not only Jammu Jamaat saying this. They are saying that कश्मीरियों ने हमें भी खत्म कर दिया, वहां से भगा के लंदन भेज दिया. हम पीओके में भी नहीं जा सकते. ये कश्मीरियों ने किया है, हमने इन डोगरों ने नहीं किया. कश्मीरियों ने उनको भगा दिया वहां से, क्योंकि रूल करना था. और मैं अगर आर्मी की बातें सुनाऊं आपको कि असली बात क्या है, people won't believe it. People won't believe it. Why you have called 22nd October as a black day after 73 years? Because the truth has come out. And now they have come to this was the British planned attack. And it was planned by
Sir, unmute yourself, please. नहीं अभी नहीं हुआ. Sorry about this inconvenience.
okay. Is it okay?
No, it's okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sorry. No, our British MP, I wish he was there. I could have said something, but now I won't. As I was saying, that it was all planned, designed attack on Kashmir. In fact, whole of Jammu and Kashmir by the British. And if those facts are now told to you, then you will see. And that's why nobody talks about them. Nobody. Therefore, if you don't talk, how will you put it in your books? So this needs a major decision. And it is written by the generals, and not only that, it is given in the history of the Ministry of Defense. No, that's a very big subject, but that is the real thing, and that is where the distortions have started. And to protect those distortions, our things are still kept away. They're not put in the books. And as Gupta says, what do you say about Jammu? I never read anything about India in the Indian history or as a military general in the staff college or in I was in charge of the promotion examination of the whole Indian army. There was no Indian book in that. It was all foreign. World War I, World War II, American War of Independence, all that, nothing Indian. So if that was not at the Government of India, Indian Army level, what do you think in Jammu somebody? So we have to think, and unfortunately that thinking has not come about in Jammu as yet. First that thinking must come, then they must get together and see how we can put the history right. Today itself I made appeal that even some professors came to me, said, let us request the Lieutenant Governor and Dr. Jitendra Singh. I've written to Dr. Jitendra. I said he is himself an intellectual. But nothing has happened in Jammu so far to correct this. And unless that is done, people will never know where is the history, what is the correct history. I'm glad that you've started this, and I mentioned us. There is so much to be done. I'm very glad really that this has happened. Now we'll work out how it can be done. Thank you so much, all of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. for your kind words, and I 100% agree. I think, first of all, in Jammu, we need to find the right leaders. I don't think we have the right leaders, hence is the problem we are all going through. But I'm not in a position to comment more on that, and I'm sure आप बुजुर्ग लोग हमें सही guidance देंगे, and you'll direct into the right path. Yeah, but I'm sure the idea, the motto behind this Itihas ke Panne, the connecting to the root sessions, was just to bring that, perhaps light that spark, which can tell the others, the young generation, those who are listening to us, and those who come on our YouTube channel to see the recorded videos later on, कि उनको कुछ तो पता चले, something which can bring that spark into their lives, to learn more about their history, to learn more about Jammu and Kashmir, and perhaps do some more research on it. This is Vijay sir, Brigadier sir कह रहे थे कि don't make it a Satyanarayan की कथा. That is absolutely right. It's not our objective to make it like that. We want to make sure कि जो सुन रहे हैं वो सुने, समझें, and perhaps they go back and do more research on it. But the whole purpose of documenting these sessions by Harbans sir is to make sure even 10 years from now on, if somebody wants to go and know about our Jammu and Kashmir history, they can go on YouTube, connecting to the roots, Itihas ke Panne, every single episode and session is there. So we have kind of documented this history digitally, and hopefully it will be very useful for generations to come. And perhaps आज नहीं, आज से 10 साल बाद, it will have more significance for our next generations, or perhaps the generation which is growing up. So this is what I think my vision is. Over to you, Harbans sir. Perhaps you can give us some more idea on our next session, and we'll conclude there.
Vikrant, may I, before Mr. Samyal comes in?
Sure, sir. Sure.
Sir, Gordon sir, with your blessings and the subject we're talking about, educating the youth, I just want to inform you that with your blessings and of course Mr. Harbans and all, I have been appointed as adjunct professor in Central University in National Security Studies Department today, sir.
Good.
Well done. Congratulations, sir.
Congratulations.
We are one step ahead, at least getting on to the youth, sir. I got the appointment letter today itself.
Yes, I was expecting something like this. Something has to happen. We have suffered too much in these 73 years. I think there's some light one can see. Things, all this is happening only. I think there is something which is going to happen. And now you probably will start this when you come next here. I will tell you, we did something today. I'll share with you what we are planning to do probably. And also what there's an officer, Colonel Rana, he's done wonderful study of this British attack on Jammu and Kashmir, including Mirpur, Bimber, Poonch, all this. Next time I can arrange, you can have him one session after Harvanshi gives all this, and he will give you exactly what has happened. What exactly? He's done tremendous study. And you will see what was happening right before 47, but all this Mirpur, Koti, Poonch, Bimber, what exactly has happened, he will give you, and then people will be educated. People don't know about Mirpur and Koti. It was always put under some cloud somewhere, never shown to the world. And the war starts from 22nd October. No, war started almost immediately after 15th. But it was in Jammu. It doesn't matter. Jammu doesn't matter. Jammu will never matter. It was only Kashmir which mattered. And now we are bringing out that Jammu mattered more. It is Jammu who conquered all those areas. And ultimately, came to Jammu because British thought Kashmir will be safe only in Dogra's hands. And you know, once the Dogras let it go, China is coming, Pakistan is coming. Only Dogras could keep Kashmir in their hands. You have removed that, and now Kashmiris are under nowhere. They're not even under central government. You can see Farouk saying, I'm going to China to get support. So this is what is happening. Anyway, I'm glad that something now will change and we'll put all this history. Harvansji, you will have to probably get this book out so that we can make use of it and recommend it to the universities also. Unfortunately, Central University hasn't got a history department. Otherwise, we could have requested them to take it on. It's only Jammu University it has. Jammu University is has always been under Kashmiris. They never allowed it. And the Jammu University professors would not dare to say that Dogra's history honi chahiye. They know that Kashmiris is that is the problem. That is the problem.
We have a department of national security studies, and that is where all these security studies, the J&K will come part of that. Entire history will come there. And as I said, I've just got the appointment letter today. I soon be coming down to Jammu and be joining that. So we can do all that, sir. The children can be taught. And we have already been there. There's a widespread people from Rajouri, Poonch, Kishtwar, Bhadrawa, and few people from Jammu as well. And I think this will be a very nice kind of education of history what Mr. Harbans Samyal is giving us. And that needs to be taught to them. And they should know what happened in this thing. And Colonel Ajay Rana also belongs to Sundarbani, sir. And he's on the that is why he's interested in what happened in the thing in that area, sir. And history of Jammu and Kashmir starts from 4th of September, sir, and not 22nd of October. If you remember 2 weeks back, when we first met in a webinar in Press Club of Jammu, that day I had contested this point, why 22nd October and not 4th of September? If you remember, sir. That's the first time you met. This is what we'll carry on. And I think Vikram Gupta has done a wonderful job. And Harbans Singh,
Thank you, sir.
बहुत ज़्यादा मेहनत करी है, and he's written I know so many books, and he's a scholar of his own genre. And I'm sure his services with us would go a long way to sort of awaken the youth of Jammu. Sir. So that's what I thought probably would be doing. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your kind words. Harbans sir, should I ask you to conclude? And perhaps we can declare the time for next week as well, when we'll come back.
I think the only thing left to say is that we have reached a very critical point now. A new generation of Kashmiris, the younger generation that had taken up, how it fared, we'll see the next time. What happened, the role of the army, probably we'll have to critically examine that some people within the army, sometimes they act rashly or in a self-centered manner so as to spoil the whole game. That too should not be ignored. Then the failure of the administration, which I have been repeating again and again. Now leadership, I divide it into 2 parts. A good leader knows when there is time to lead. And a good leader also knows when there is time to listen. A good leader should be listening also to other people, to all the people, and then giving his solutions. So did the state do that? What happened in 2010? What happened when the floods struck the valley? And the dishonesty of the political parties in 2016? And then what happened after that? And now where do we stand? I think within the next 2 lectures, I'll be concluding this part of Kashmir and Jammu. And then only 1 lecture would remain. That would be, I would prefer to go into the history of Ladakh. See the connectivity of Ladakh with the rest of the country from ancient times to the recent period. And recent period, I include the period of Aurangzeb, because it was during that period that a treaty was signed between Tibet and Ladakh, which was being followed till about a few years back. With that, I would conclude. We have, I think, 3 more lectures to do. And then hopefully other people will take from this place. And I'll be busy with, I'm thinking, General Jawal, for your interest, of compiling a compact history of modern Jammu, beginning with the making of the state, Maharaja Gulab Singh, and concluding with the dismantling of the state, that is 2019, 5th of August, and where that has left us. So that I hope to conclude. As far as my book coming out for print, I'm waiting that things normalize and I am allowed to go to Delhi and meet people. I have to discuss certain things with the publisher. The book is ready. All that needs is that I should be able to reach my publisher and sort out a few things. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Once again, we really appreciate your time and efforts in keeping us enlightened with all these historical facts and knowledge about what happened in Jammu and Kashmir. So I will take the opportunity now and really thank each and everybody who have been participants or viewers and listeners to the session today. We will be back next week, Sunday on 24th of January, 6 p.m. India time. In Britain, it will be 12:30 in the afternoon, and we'll once again continue from where Harbans sir has left today. So thank you once again, and I hope to see you all again next week. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much.